It's Wednesday, March 27th. I'm your host, Sarah Beal. On today's show, Deputy Chief Matthew Sonnabend will join us to discuss a home invasion that took place last week, as well as to discuss how the March for Our Lives event that took place on the village this past weekend on the Village Green went. Then we'll take you inside this year's Barnstable Youth Commission 7th Grade Youth Summit. And finally, we'll hear from Consumer Affairs Officer Therese Gallant about the upcoming alcohol compliance meetings. But first, let's get a look at today's top headlines. The Cape Cod Cooperative Extension has released the 2018 Household Hazardous Waste Collection Schedule. The first collection will take place on April 9th from 9 a.m. to noon at the transfer station. You must have a Barnesville Recycle sticker in order to participate. Items that may be collected include cleaners and chemicals, gasoline, mercury products, pool chemicals, oil-based paints, polishes, and stains, as well as pesticides and lawn chemicals. For more information, you can visit www.loveyourlocalwater.org. Attention Cotuit residents, water main flushing is scheduled to begin on April 9th and continue until June 29th. Work will be done Monday through Friday throughout the village between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Water main flushing is part of a preventative maintenance program being undertaken by the Water Department to ensure that water quality is not being compromised. Signs will be visible in flushing areas, and residents in these areas are advised to refrain from laundering between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. and to set aside water for drinking and cooking purposes. Flushing locations will be posted daily on KotuitFireDistrict.org and on the Cotuit Water District's Facebook page. Please call Cotuit Water at 508-428-2687 with any questions. The Sandy Neck app has arrived. In order to keep the public informed of important changes at the beach, an app has been created that can be downloaded to your smartphones. This new app will give the public real-time information regarding the status of Sandy Neck Beach Park. Easy to download, simple to navigate, it is a welcome addition to the ongoing efforts of everyone at Sandy Neck to keep you informed. Please go to sandyneckbeachpark.com for instructions. Also from Sandy Neck Beach Park, some important off-road vehicle application information. Sandy Neck off-road vehicle permit applications will no longer be mailed to current ORV permit holders. All current permit holders will be receiving an email with complete instructions for purchasing an ORV permit. Once you send in the required paperwork, you will still receive your 2018 Sandy Neck ORV permit in the mail. Up next, Barnstable Police Deputy Chief Matthew Sonnabend. Deputy Chief Sonnabend, thank you so much for joining us today. We have a couple of things we want to chat about. The first thing I want to talk about is something that happened last week after I talked to you on last week's show. There was a home invasion on, I believe, General Patton Drive?
Yes, that's correct. First of all, good morning. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
You too.
But yes, you're right. On the 19th at about 11:30 or so p.m., we got a couple of 911 calls about a disturbance down on General Patton Drive, and officers happened to be in the area, and we get some calls about a vehicle fleeing the area, taking off. The officers stopped the car, detained the people that were in the car, ended up that there were some handguns recovered, and there were 3 to 4 subjects in the car. And following back to the source of the complaint, it turns out that the individuals had allegedly broke into the home and assaulted a resident there in the home and stole some items and then fled in the car. But it appears as though we did get all the people that were involved in that incident, and it was not a random event.
Yeah, that's the thing I always like to make sure that our viewers are aware of, is like when things are random and when they're not. This was an isolated incident. These people knew kind of each other, I assume.
Yeah, this was not a random event. They were, the victim may not have known these people per se, but they knew him, and they were looking for this person specifically.
Right.
It wasn't something that just randomly occurred, out of the thin air. It was something that these people had been planning on. So
right. It's good to know, and all the people that were involved were apprehended. So
yes, they were. Excuse me. Yes, they were. And they all are still being detained. They all are still being held. And we are still working on a few things involved in that investigation, obviously. There are some other things to chase down, but all the people that were involved in it have been arrested, and they are still being held at court, and they are not out on the street. We don't anticipate that they're going to be out doing anything for a little while.
That's good. We also want to talk about the March for Our Lives was held on Saturday right here on the Village Green at Town Hall. From a safety standpoint, how did that event go?
That event went really well. We were talking with the organizers in their planning stages. They came in and met with the chief. They had obtained a permit from town hall. They were communicating with all the people necessary. They talked to the fire department. We coordinated with the fire department and other town entities to make sure that we had enough people down there. We also talked with the organizers ahead of time, and they let us know that they had about 850 people that pre-registered for that event through social media. I wouldn't know how to pre-register through social media, so don't ask me, but apparently one can pre-register through social media for rallies and events. So they did have about 850 that they did pre-register, but they were expecting about 1,000. And when we get down there, it was about, I would say it was about that number. About 1,000 people were down there. It was peaceful. Everybody seemed pretty positive. There were, people had some signs, and the youth, all the people that, well, they weren't all youth, but they had, Mr. Keating came down, he spoke, Sarah Peak spoke, the student organizers from, there was Colleen Ellis from Barnstable High School, Jack Forrester from the Sturgis, and there were a few other kids that spoke. And most of them spoke really well. Mm-hmm. They made their point. It was, although the subject matter was disturbing, it was a positive event. I got a positive energy out of the whole thing, and there were no problems. There were a couple people that, showed up and watched and left, and the crowd kind of moved around a little bit. I mean, they stayed in the general area, but, they came and went throughout the period. They started at about 11 when their event actually kicked off, and at about 2 o'clock, they had approached us and that they asked if they could walk down Main Street, and we accommodated that. We closed down Main Street for a brief period of time, and they marched down Main Street and back around on the South Street and back to the town green, and it all went well. Nobody was hurt. Nobody had any complaints, and everybody, it was a positive day, I think.
I think so, too. I think it's so great to see young kids, come together and work towards a goal, and such a positive experience for them. Like you said, a disturbing incident that, forces this forward, but it's good to see the kids and people in the community coming together for something. Mm-hmm. So I think all in all, it was a positive thing. The last thing I want to touch on is that, while it may not feel like spring, it technically is spring. And road work is starting up, and that, there'll be details at a lot of different construction sites and road construction sites. There's going to be a detour versus Way in 28, and we just want to remind everyone to pay attention.
Yeah, please do. There are going to be workers in the road. It's going to pick up. We all know on the Cape, spring season, the road work is going to start back up again in earnest. And everybody's got to remember that bridge. We're going to be having some difficulties with that bridge, too. Mm-hmm. And not just pay attention, but maybe allow yourself a few extra minutes to get somewhere, and don't let frustration get to you. Pay attention while you're driving. Put the phone down and look around. There are going to be a lot more people in the street, and as the warmer weather starts coming out, the kids are going to be back out on the street playing on the roads again, too.
Yep.
So, and I know it doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like winter's ever going to end. But it's going to end, I promise. Yeah. And it's going to get warm, and, let's roll our windows down and have a great day and pay attention to where we're going.
Exactly. Deputy Chief, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it and look forward to chatting with you again next week.
No problem. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye. My guest today is Deputy Chief Matthew Sonnabend of the Barnstable Police Department. Coming up, Consumer Affairs Officer Therese Gallant discusses the upcoming alcohol compliance meetings. But first, we take you inside the Barnstable Youth Commission's 7th Grade Youth Summit.
The Barnstable Youth Commission held its 4th annual 7th Grade Youth Summit on Friday, March 16th. Barnstable Intermediate School students convened at Cape Cod Community College for an all-day event, which included peer leadership sessions, interactive lectures on how to cope with stress and peer pressure, and a vendor fair in the cafeteria. We spoke with Caleb Sonnabend, Vice Chair of the Barnstable Youth Commission, and others about the importance of an event like this. challenges students face, and ways everyone can get involved to impact change.
We view this as a critical time for 7th graders. So as they're moving into high school, they'll experience a lot of new things. Barnstable is a little different from most school systems as we have 8th graders moving to high school. So we definitely view it as a critical time to kind of show them what they might be experiencing in the high school and give them opportunities and help they can receive in the high school and beyond. Here at the moment we have several care facilities here, as well as high schoolers that they can act as resources when they're in the high school. And we have people who will kind of give them a little bit of insight as to what they may or may not experience in the high school.
I'm going to make sure I'm drama free and make sure I have a good community around me.
Pretty much all the youth in this area to get an opportunity to learn and see some of the actual consequences of some actions. Like choose who you want to surround yourself with and make the right decision. Probably like read people more, like see how they act and see like if they're the right people to surround myself with.
I feel like it's really important because we get to learn about drug abuse and how to cope with it and how to understand, because it's not just don't do drugs. We can understand really more about it. We saw that peer pressure was used a lot, and they taught us how to kind of cope with peer pressure and how to just not just follow everybody and go your own path.
Like media and other influencers, they make our decisions kind of, and it's good to know what you like and what your decisions are.
The biggest challenge for them is life in general. What I mean by that is, they have, and I'll use an example, when I was younger, didn't have social media, didn't have cell phones, didn't have all this outside stuff, and we were kids, and we grew up, we had fun, that's what it's all about. Now it's almost like a competition, you gotta be better than the next person, at such a young age. But it shouldn't be like that. A kid needs to be a kid and have fun and grow up, but because of social media, they see all this stuff that, I got to be better than that, or I got to be like this. There's a lot of more pressure on younger kids. And that's the biggest challenge. How do we help that? Well, as adults, we got to put them on the right path and teach them, hey, be you. Be yourself. You don't have to be the next person. You don't have to do everything everybody else is doing. That's just social media. It's not real. Just continue to be who you are and be true to yourself, because in the long run, as you get older, the only one that's going to help you really is you. So there's people in the community, and such a great community we have here in the Cape, that there's people out there that care. Adults, and more than their parents, whether it's the police, the school, which is huge, it's been huge in this, and also just people, a little bit older, high school kids are there for them, and it's somebody else to reach out to. Because a lot of kids, it's mom and dad. I don't want to talk to the police officer because they're scary. But by us being here and by other people being here, it's not so scary. It's making it a little bit easier for them. Like Officer Brian or, Officer Sonbet or Officer Johnson, they're not too bad to go talk to. They're just regular people doing a job. So it's the biggest thing they're getting out of this. It's just that there's knowledge, first of all, of the dangers of drugs, and it's not all glorified like they see on social media and on television, that there's real danger to it. And the other thing, that there's people out there to help them.
Having an event like this really helps give the kids a sense of community, so they're able to find out that, sometimes their thoughts, they're not alone. So now we're able to see certain similarities, and also I think the main purpose is that we're able to give them the tools that they need to help making smart choices. I think when it comes to don't do drugs and that kind of thing, that's great. But when you're dealing with life, it's like, what's the alternative? So now we have to look at giving those types of skills, coping skills, things like that. So that way when they are in certain situations, they know how to make the best choice for them. I think from here, when they leave, they need to be proud of who they are and what they're doing. And then what type of steps are they going to go back to their school to help show other students that they're making the right choices and to get other people to buy in. That's how you can make that change.
I think a lot of the challenges are a lot of peer pressure. We've always had peer pressure, but it's that level of where do I fit in, and just nobody wants to talk to me, or I'm on my phone, so the social skills are deplenished. It's just not as strong as it was because nobody else communicate. The parents aren't talking to the kids got their own, and we're all guilty of being on the phones and doing little words with friends or trying to communicate with each other. and you don't realize it, but next thing you know, your kid's in bed. And then you go to bed. You get up in the morning and you keep going. So it's like you have to put that time aside and just talk to your kids and find out what their day's like, what their likes are. And maybe you'll find out some more stuff about yourself that you didn't realize also. Communication is huge. There are outreach programs. There's different places that they can go and talk to, or just, you know, some kids might want to do sports, so we have to flag football, and the parents are like, no, violent, you know, but it's not about that. It's just getting them out into the community and getting them to learn a little bit more about themselves and stuff that they didn't realize they could do.
I think number one, it shows how much the town of Barnstable cares for its youth. When you've been in education as long as I have, 34 years, I've gone to my share of funerals of students who've died of overdoses, students who've died in drunk driving car accidents. I've gone to over 20 funerals in my 34 years, and I think an opportunity like this is so that younger teachers than I do not have to go to these funerals, that we care so much about these kids. We're trying to make it clear the potholes in the road up ahead. I think in today's world, you see students dealing with so many people in their own sphere who are wrestling with addiction, that these students need support to know they're not alone, to know how to handle the pressures they're faced with, to know how to avoid some of these temptations that could be coming their way. Some of these students, they know the score, but they also need to know ways to push on through. Everyone knows there are sad times in this world, but there's also so much good in this world. Good people, good experiences, futures that are worth living, and that's what these students have to always keep in mind, that no matter how tough the present could be for some of them, the future could just be beautiful.
Officer Gallant, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to talk about the alcohol compliance meetings, which are coming up in April, and those are for businesses that sell or serve alcohol, which means restaurants and package stores and liquor stores. And you're going to take a different tact this year with the meetings. So let's talk a little bit about why you have the alcohol compliance meetings and what the changes are going to be this year.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here, by the way.
Thank you.
Happy Monday.
Yeah.
So in the past, my understanding is I did the meeting last year. I did not do the meeting prior to that. But last year it was more about addressing rules and regulations. There have been some changes, and I think that was part of the reason why we went over the rules and regs. Mm-hmm. This year, in speaking with Lieutenant Murphy and Mr. Scally and Ms. Hartsgrove, we decided to take a different approach to this. So originally it was, these are mandatory meetings, and part of it is because we get a lot of new businesses coming in, you know, throughout the year holding alcohol licenses. And we want to know who our new people are, and just to kind of fill them in on who we are and what we're looking for. In years gone by, I know there was a lot of recitation of rules and regs, and so to do it a little bit different and to get more of an appeal to our audience, we decided to address some concerns that have come up in recent times throughout the Cape and in the town of Barnstable, and that would be to speak to over-service issues. So Lieutenant Murphy and I had a discussion, and we thought what we'd like to do is have someone come in and address our licensees about the concerns, the civil concerns in holding a license, and if something were to take place, what they might be facing. So we had Attorney John Kenny has graciously agreed to attend our meeting and to speak to that particular topic. In addition to that, part of the over-service compliance checks that took place in the Cape were conducted by the ABCC. Specifically, I know Investigator Jamie Benender, our local investigator, was involved with that, and I had conversation with him afterwards. So Investigator Benender has graciously also agreed to attend our meeting. So I thought we'd take a two-prong approach to this. And Lieutenant Murphy and I thought it would be the best way to kind of engage our audience, and also to offer our services as well. One of the other things that we were looking to do as well was to, you know, obviously we're looking for input from our licensees, and we thought we would offer our services come May, because a lot of our folks that hold the licenses, I think I spoke to you about this last time, they understand the responsibility of the license. I think though when you're hiring staff, you know, that sometimes does not necessarily trickle down. Mm-hmm. And we're looking to offer our services to the businesses to come out and speak to their staff, especially newly hired staff, to address those concerns, specifically what we'd be looking for on our compliance checks or what the ABCC might be looking for on their compliance checks, and also to address, needless to say, the underage rather, alcohol issues and checking IDs and things of that sort.
Yeah, it's a very serious issue, and unfortunately, you know, something we have to deal with here on Cape Cod is you know, we have a vacation mentality, especially in the summertime. So, you know, people get a little loosey-goosey, and you just want to make sure that people understand that this is a very serious issue. The town takes it seriously, the police department takes it seriously, and the businesses should too, because it affects not only their business, but also affects the town if we're having issues with, you know, alcohol and things of that nature.
Exactly. And I think a lot of a lot of businesses are, I think they're getting to know me and they're getting to know what I'm about. And, you know, rather than coming in and being just, I've said this before, you know, it's not just about the enforcement, it's also about education. And I really do think it's important to remind people of their responsibilities. We all need that, including myself, you know, and I think it's a good way to interact with these businesses. And Lieutenant Murphy, you know, obviously has done that as well and continues to, you know, look for us to do things like that. Try to take innovative approaches to things. And what I'm looking for is some input from our licensees as well, that if there are other topics that they'd like to address, you know, I kind of pulled this one out of the hat this time around. What I'm hoping is as we progress through the future, that we have other things that maybe are that are important to them that I'm not aware of, you know, and that we can bring some people in that could speak to those particular topics or concerns.
Right. You know, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
And it's you know, important for these businesses to understand that having a liquor license is a privilege. It's not a right. They are granted this through the state and through the town. So, you know, it's important that they respect that as well as, you know, the residents here and the visitors.
Exactly.
What else about the alcohol compliance meeting do you want to make sure our residents are aware of? Because I think it's important for people to understand, you know, the steps that the town takes, and that we're looking out for the town's best interests and the best interests of the residents of the town. So I think it's important that even though the residents won't be attending these meetings necessarily unless they're a business owner, you know, it's important to know that this is something that goes on.
Absolutely. And I think that, so let's see, the responsibility of a licensee, obviously, and then that the police department is directly involved with these businesses. And I want our people to know that, the people in our community know that, and that if they have concerns, there are ways to voice those concerns themselves. You know, they can get in touch with myself or Lieutenant Murphy about these concerns if there's something specific that we can address, or if they want to speak to the great way that someone's doing their job, that they've been very effective and they handle their public very graciously, courteously. You know, that they dealt with a problem appropriately and whatnot. You know, we have different businesses, as you mentioned. We have the liquor stores as opposed to the restaurants. Very different businesses. Some of those issues or concerns cross, definitely, but they're very different. The clientele can be very different. You know, here on Main Street, you know, you come down here on a weekend night, especially during the summer, it's a whole different Main Street, you know, and it's wonderful to see the Main Street thriving, and it's good to see that our licensees, that our folks are out there, and they are. You know, I've seen them out there. I've been out on Main Street at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm seeing our people out there, and I appreciate the fact that they're very involved. You know, and I try to touch base with everybody. So I want our community to know that the businesses are doing their due diligence, that they are involved. These meetings are mandatory, and again, it's to remind people of their responsibilities and to catch the new people coming in so that they're aware of how seriously we take this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming in and talking with us about the alcohol compliance meetings. I think it's really important and it's an informative subject.
Absolutely.
I want people to know about.
Thank you very much.
My guest today is Officer Therese Gallant. She's a police officer here in the town of Barnstable. Now it's time for our community calendar. March 29th has been designated as Vietnam Veterans Day. This day commemorates the sacrifices of Vietnam veterans and their families and is part of a national effort to recognize the men and women who were denied a proper welcome upon returning home more than 40 years ago. The Barnstable Senior Center is hosting an event on Thursday, March 29th at 1:30 p.m. and they welcome all Vietnam veterans from the Cape and Islands to come with family and friends and veterans of all eras. This is a deserved day of remembrance and recognition. For more information, you can contact the Senior Center at 508-862-4750. The only meetings left on the schedule this week are the Accessory Affordable Apartment Program Amnesty hearing tonight at 6:30 p.m., followed by the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting at 7 p.m. Thank you for joining us today. We'll be back tomorrow with an all-new episode of Barnstable Today. On Thursday's show, we'll talk with Town Manager Mark Ells, Town Councilor Jessica Rappersetti, and State Rep Tim Whalen. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Beal.